What is up, Mythgardians? Leap Daniel here with a fun red-blue-green deck for you to try. I call it Brass Wall. I made it based on the Ice Wall deck by Ejecty, which you can check out via the link in the description. However, I was missing a lot of the Mythic cards, so I took out some cards to make room to splash some green cards in, as well as Brass Bouncer. I think it turned out pretty well. Brass Bouncer, the 3 copies of Brass Bouncer are what give rise to the name Brass Wall, as a variation on Ice Wall. The Spirit Stones and Sweet Spinnerets combo well with the return to hand effects or bouncing effects of Brass Bouncer and Valkyrie Enforcer. And Grinning Kolobok and Matryoshka help shore up the early game in a deck that's generally weak against aggro. Alright, so aside from the bouncing and the green early game, this deck plays mostly like the Ice Wall deck in the Link. Against aggro decks, you want to hold on to things like Thunderclap, Magnus Thorson, Magmatar, control cards to keep the board clear of those pesky minions. And you want to definitely throw away Dragon's Teeth, burn that because you don't want to give an aggro deck more resources. Defend your artifacts and life with chump blockers, Stray Panacea, Kolobok, Forgelings. And whereas against control decks, you do want Dragon's Teeth. You want to use Dragon's Teeth and the Stretcher to put them on the clock and continuously refresh your resources. They won't be able to spend things as fast as you because you have Kolobok and Norn Data Core for that mana ramp. That will help you dismantle your opponent's threats or pump out threats of your own. Usually you want to burn 1 green gem pretty early just because Grinning Kolobok and Matryoshka are great to have in the early game. You only need 1 green gem. You generally don't want to burn more than 1 unless you're really in a pinch for mana. Sweet Spinneret and Spirit Stones are not needed early on. Those are great targets to burn. And you can even search out a Spirit Stones to burn with Brissing Necklace. Frecky Sidecar interacts very well with everything in the deck, especially Matryoshka, Brass Bouncer, to unexpectedly bounce something. You can use it with Melino in the very late game. Her Forlorn Spirits are wonderful with Frecky Sidecar. So Frecky Sidecar helps you rush a lot, helps you poke a lot, trade a lot, do a lot of damage. It's amazing. Wings of Abaddon is very good for sacrificing Stray Panacea and Grinning Kolobok, as well as, again, also trading. Spirit Stones combined with Brass Bouncer can lock down 3 spots on the board for your opponent. They'll never want to play anything there, and then you can push for damage with Matryoshka or put a lurking Melino nearby so that it's constantly generating Forlorn Spirits and it's hard for them to get rid of. So they might have to waste some hard removal on it or something like that. Brissing Necklace is not really that important to the deck, but it's nice to search out Spirit Stones, which, since it's a mythic, you can only run 1 of. But Sweet Spinnerets are like a one-time cheap Spirit Stones. So if your opponent plays something big, you can go Sweet Spinnerets and then Valkyrie Enforcer and just quickly get rid of it. So let's talk about crafting. What do you need to craft if you want to play this deck? Well, as far as I can tell, no mythic cards are 100% necessary for this deck. Gigantomachia, Melino, Brissing Necklace, and Spirit Stones are actually somewhat worse than the other cards in this deck. I often find myself burning them a lot, especially in the early game. Magnus is very powerful. I usually hold on to him even though he costs 5 mana, but he's not core to the strategy. The deck will still work without him. He's just one of those cards that makes everything blue better. So why not run him if you have him? But if you don't have him, you can still build the deck. The things that really are core to the strategy are more like the rare artifacts, like Dragon's Teeth, Stretcher, Norn Data Core. Same as with Ice Wall, really. Those are the most important pieces. If you find that you're missing some cards, you can probably just replace them with things I didn't include from the original Ice Wall list. For example, my guess is Sea Lord's Trident would actually be a lot better in this deck than Melano. I just don't have Sea Lord's Trident, so if you have Sea Lord's Trident, run it and replace it with some other mythic you don't have. If you don't have Spirit Stones, Sweet Spinneret, like I said, kind of accomplishes the same thing, so you could try running another copy of Sweet Spinneret. I didn't max out the copies. Or you could run more Barbed Bolts, or Bragi, or whatever. You could even try running other green artifacts, because the other ones also cost 1 gem. You could run like Samasek or Shroud of the Pit, but I would caution against adding too much green, because you want your red and blue plays to be consistent. As it is, there's already a lot of green here, so don't get too indulgent with the green. Alright, so let's check out some games with this deck. Okay, so this first game is to show you how it plays against a very aggressive deck. So turn 1, he's got a nice aggressive curve, as you can see in his hand. He's playing a lot of red. I just play straight Panacea. I don't block the pup because I'm hoping to draw Matryoshka and buff it to trade for something, but I don't draw it, so that's kind of... Okay, he puts out another pup. He plays another pup, so it doesn't really matter. I burn Frecky Sidecar to play Norn Data Core and block with a Forgeling. So now if he kills anything, I get lots of mana from it. He trades with the Trapezist. Unfortunately for him, he played right into my Thunderclap, which I can play now thanks to Norn Data Core, pushing my mana over the edge. This is the game-winning turn, I think. This is where I win. After this, it's just the march to victory, since he has so few resources. He tries to recuperate with Panic Raider, drawing a card. I burn Spirit Stones early on and block with Kolobok, using Impel to make sure that I would gain a mana if he kills it. He pushes for more damage and draw, but is not making much of a dent, just 3 damage. And his Raider is gone at the end of the turn. I wisely burn the Dragon's Teeth since my opponent is playing aggro and eliminate his Trapezist with Magmatar. He plays a second Red Carnival, which is pretty much useless. I drop a Stretcher just to deal a little extra damage, along with getting a Forgeling. Stretcher really isn't a priority against aggro decks either, but I didn't have much to do and only had 2 gems, which would make playing it at other times awkward. Plus, I wanted to keep Wings of Abaddon in the pocket. I drew a timely Valkyrie Enforcer just to bounce his buffed Strigoi Reaver, so now he loses the buff, and I play Matryoshka. And as you can see, it's pretty much game here. I then drop a Forgeling. My board is covered. So he just plays Reaver because he doesn't have any other choices. I use Matryoshka. I think I could have actually killed him in this turn if I didn't trade, because he wouldn't have gotten the life tap. But at any rate, he's dead enough to be aware that he's dead, and he just concedes. So that's how you play against aggro. It doesn't always work out like that. Aggro is a tough matchup for this deck, but yeah, that's how you do that. So my opponent goes first. They have no moves. I burn a Spinneret for Kalabak. My opponent just uses their Foresight hero power. They still have nothing for 2 mana. I play Barbed Bolts because it's normally not the ideal artifact to play on turn 2, but it's the only one I had. So I drop a Forgeling. My opponent plays Stone Mother to block. And I get Brissing Necklace. So that makes me think, oh, what if I find some way to bounce and banish? So I play Brass Bouncer. He plays Sacrificial Altar. It doesn't really do anything here, so pretty ineffectual turn, I think. This is a very early Spirit Stones play. Normally I don't play it this early, but it just fits so well with going up against Stone Mother. So Brass Bouncer, boom, banishes. He plays the Splicing Lab and uses Foresight again. Really not putting anything on board. I drop a Rotary Forgeling right in the middle so I can blast to the sides. He Thunderclaps. I play Stretcher and the Forgeling it generates as well. Now he's Fires of Creation too, so he plays some artifacts too now for the first time. And he plays one of the Forgelings on the Splicing Lab, so it gets whatever mutations. And then I just want to push face, so I use Magnus. And then Matryoshka lets Bouncer push for more damage than usual, so that's even if your opponent never plays anything in the Spirit Stones lanes, you can still get pings out of it and apply some pressure. So he's just played another Forgeling. I just block with Panacea, wanting to get more pressure out. And his blast is now situated so that it can't blast anything. Okay. So I just clear and push for game, dealing lots of damage. There you go. The end. So you saw how Spirit Stones helped me regulate his board, kind of, and push for more damage. Brass Bouncer went uncontested there. In a way, it's almost like another Stretcher, but different. It helps you remove. It pings. So I thought that was a pretty good game. So you'll see the way I use Dragon's Teeth to just constantly get more. So my opponent goes first. They've got nothing to do. I burn the stones, play Kalabak. Kalabak Datacore is a great starting draw. He plays Yaoi, and I have no way to deal with it. So I just Datacore and run away. Because I want my guy to build up more. And then I play the Forgeling on the other side, so he's kind of split there. He has two choices. So he just used Foresight and chased my Kalabak. I think it's weird to chase a Kalabak. I don't think you want to do that because it has Swift. So Kalabak gets away, but not all the way away because I might want to kill it later. So he kills my Panacea. So then I play Matryoshka to deal a little bit of damage. He thinks that's a bad idea, apparently, based on his emote. But then I play Rotary Forgeling so that he's within blast range. So his turn is pretty ineffectual here, just drawing. I think it's kind of a misplay to play that 5-mana card before you just use your Maze of Ejecty ability, because that costs 0 and you might draw something worth playing. But at any rate, that's all he does. So then I clear with Blast and Frecky Sidecar, and I use Frecky Sidecar to push the Forgeling, which I also boost with Matryoshka. So he's already pretty low, but this game is far from over because he misanthropias me, totally clearing my board. But I draw Timely Dragon's Teeth, and this deck is the best for recovering from stuff like that. I have lots of mana stored in the data core, and each artifact gives me a Forgeling, so there's lots I can do. I already have 2 very strong Forgelings out right away after a Misanthropia. He plays Iku Turso, which is a big old boy, but that's okay. I play a second Dragon's Teeth, making his control game even more ineffectual, and another Forgeling. And at this point I think I've got him, but he's got a little Wonder Drug in the pocket, so and he's not getting stretched, so the draw doesn't hurt him yet. But he uses Vicious Cycle. He hasn't used Wonder Drug yet, but he will. And he's blocking all over the place. So I use Spinneret and Valkyrie Enforcer, because I don't know about his Wonder Drug. I'm just trying to push for game, and I figure, oh, I can Thunderclap him next turn. But he has Wonder Drug. And Misanthropia. He Misanthropias to clear the board, and Wonder Drugs to stay within safety range. So even with just a 1/1, I can push for 3 because of Matryoshka. And the Magnus Thorson there was not to remove because everything was blighted. It was just to get a 4/4 body. And then I also get a 7/7 body. Data cores putting in work. So he's already used up both his Misanthropias and 1 Wonder Drug. And now he plays a second Wonder Drug. And he blocks with Feathered Serpent. Not a good trade for him here, but he's desperate. Another Matryoshka. I kill my own Stray Panacea just to get the healing and the draw, and then I play Stretcher. push for 5. He takes my 8/8 and blocks again. But this time, my Valkyrie Enforcer will just bounce that, and he gets burned for 3 at the end of the turn. Plus I have Wings of Abaddon, so I have him dead in multiple ways. And he concedes. Alright, so that's it. Even through 2 Misanthropias and 2 Wonder Drugs, control decks just generally have a really hard time keeping up with this deck. So I hope you give the deck a try, and I hope you enjoy it. Maybe you come up with your own modifications or ideas that work with your own collection. Let me know down in the comments what you think, and if you did enjoy the deck showcase, consider subscribing.